Secretariat, mics. A proposal or a question? Proposal. Okay, that's okay. Secretary, let's start with the... Use the mic, please.
Yes, all protocols observed. My request is that since we are all stakeholders in this, that each institution or each party be assigned, say, for example, 5 to 10 minutes, as shall be agreed upon, so that we all make our submissions, and then we clear with one party at a time. And on that basis, I would request that I begin from the Institution of Engineers of Kenya.
Okay, before you begin,
thank you.
Before you begin, your point is noted. Just to indulge you, if we start with IEK, and I know you are there, President is there, Kiteme is there, do we take it that the presenter will take care of everyone?
Yes, sir.
If that's the case, then you still do not need to take the entire 5 minutes. I think we need to confirm that we quite have quite a number of institutions. Not all of them might have comments or questions. But at the end of the day, it will be good that we start with your proposal. We hear you, and then we go to AAK. Thank you. Colleagues, take note of the comments. If we need to respond directly or if we need to take it for further incorporation. Thank you.
Yeah, much obliged, sir. All protocols observed. To the chairman of the committee, I will just read our overview as the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. And our overview is as follows. Generally, this proposed National Building Code 2022 is welcome at such a time to help manage construction, housing, and related developments in accordance with the expectations of our Constitution and indeed the nation. However, to achieve this and in the spirit of synergy, the following improvements are proposed by the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. The building code should be domiciled under the State Department of Housing for ease of enforcement. Various professionals, including engineers, architects, and quantity surveyors who are regulated under different acts of parliament will be required to comply with the building code. Successful enforcement of the building code will require collaboration and concerted efforts of all built environment regulators, including EBK and BORAX. The proposed code has offending clauses that give NCA responsibilities and mandates that infringe on the EBK mandate to regulate professional engineers. This is likely to cause disharmony in the construction industry. NCA would have failed in its key function of overseeing the construction industry and coordinating its development as outlined in NCA Act 2011 Clause 5.1. In addition, the code does not recognize nor appreciate the different disciplines of engineering. The role of building services engineers is conspicuously missing. In fact, in some instances, their roles are apportioned to architects. There is confusion in the use of the term civil engineers and structural engineers. The important roles played by all engineers in different disciplines need to be recognized to enhance professionalism in construction. And Mr. Moderator, what is uniquely absent is that telecommunications infrastructure as an infrastructure service is not captured, yet it was raised by my colleagues in the KEPSA side, but I'll not speak about that for now. The proposed code fails to recognize advances in engineering and contemporary practices. For instance, it fails to recognize automatic fire alarm systems, only recognizing manual fire alarm systems. Again, this goes against NCA's function of promoting and stimulating the development, improvement, and expansion of the construction industry, as outlined in NCA Act 2011, Clause 5.2a. Building code should be able to coordinate all the players in the building industry, including investors, professional government institutions to ensure that compliance of the code is applied. Proper coordination will reduce poor communication and implementation of the construction industry. The model of Huduma Center requires to be used to ensure one-stop shop is coordinated. Mr. Moderator, sir, we submitted our items that were found in the code, but to the largest extent possible, most of the items remained non-addressed. And this is our concern on this plenary. Thank you.
Thank you. We have received. Let's go to
Sorry, allow me to submit.
officially. Thank you. Yes, President.
Thank you very much, Moderator, and my apologies for the earlier interjection. We were just getting frustrated that we are here and you seem to be taking us through the code which we already have read, but we really appreciate this chance as the Institution of Engineers of Kenya to be allowed, and we hope that this time round, Professor Rukwaro and team, you take our comments seriously. We are aware that we need to be listened to, and we just like to remind Mana PS that we don't want to be forced to go the judicial review way if you don't listen to us. Thank you.
Okay, it's noted. Prof, as the chair of the committee, please can you receive the memorandum?
Yes, permit me, sir, to resubmit our memorandum. There are enough items in this. We are making the resubmissions once again, formally, from the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. I'm the chairperson of the Legislation and Regulations. Professor, in all humility, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Asante sana. AAK, we are going what was proposed, professional bodies. We have done AAK, if any. Arabu, architect.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make some very quick remarks and then I'll allow my landscape architect colleague, Ruth, to make a quick one also. Just quickly to say that the first item which we want to bring to the attention of this forum is the issue of universal access. We applaud the fact that the issues of PWD have been taken care of, but we will look at the aspects of implementation. We may want to consider how these issues are going to be implemented. And by provisions of a new part, that is part 20, and sort of actually even being very specific about PWD, we may put that particular aspect of the code to the subject of options. Rather, because if we look at issues of PWD, it's mostly to do with universal access. And part 2 of the code, which talks about accessing of sites and buildings, and other provisions within public realm of buildings, talk about accessing of buildings. And I think, or rather, as AAK, we believe that one of the things that needs to be put very firmly, that this cannot be an option, it should be included as part of the issue of access, so that if the issues of PWDs are addressed as part of the main issues of design, then they don't have to be provided as a special part, which then someone might take them as an option. So for example, issues of ramps in public buildings should not be an option that can be considered, but rather should be the default. So this should help in terms of implementation. Secondly, we want to applaud the issue of regular review again, and we respect the fact that that is provided for, and we hope that everything that can be discussed here can actually be reviewed. In fact, if you look at, for example, in Japan, where buildings which are older than 20 years are of low value because of the regular nature in which they review their resilience codes. Because you know Japan is at a very high risk. And if a building is older than 30 years, because the code is always being revised, it has a lower market value. But in our case, because the fact that most of the buildings are just being done, and if we review, how then do we have this in the code such that every time a building is done with a new code, it has a better market value. And we like the review bit, of course, with the issues of enforcement to come in very seriously. The issue of quality of materials becomes very critical, and we like to applaud this because, one, it's one of the biggest causes of breakdown, collapse of buildings. And the reason why this is sometimes it's beyond even the issues, the designers, as much as we like to say they're supposed to look at them. But if the supply of poor quality material is allowed in the market, it starts to become a problem. And we know that up to 80% of our construction do not involve consultants. I know we are going to work on that. But the reality is right now, majority of us do not know what is being built. So if we allow poor quality materials in the market, we are setting up Kenyans to failure. So I think the idea of quality of building should even go beyond the manufacturers, but also suppliers. And all these people should be regulated so that they don't sell poor quality materials in the market. Then the issue of local content in terms of design input should be very, very emphasized, because the understanding of the local consultant is obviously at a higher level than someone coming from outside. Majority of our buildings right now are being designed by outside consultants, and we have local, some of them have local designers involved. So we need to get to a point whereby this is actually highlighted and brought to the fore. Finally, on the issue, that's from me, and then I'll give Ruth just a few comments she has. The issue of these hazard maps, for us, the biggest challenge we have, for instance, even county approval regulations or provisions, for every county there's different things, 5 blueprints here with this document here, and this information sometimes is very difficult to access. If this hazard maps, for example, needs to be in public domain, we're just seeing them now. We try to search for them, we can't find them. So we need a very robust way of circulating this information, to the point that even the building code should be a database that's searchable online, that if I just go and Google and type a keyword, I get an information that I require from this document. So this information does not help anyone if it is somewhere that I have to scroll through 300 and something pages, and maybe I need it at the go. And I'm just talking about myself. Now imagine the other 80% of projects which are being done by random people. By random people, I'm talking about the people who are not supposed to do them. This information also needs to reach them, so that we can implement very basic things like the issues of indoor air quality, and address issues of healthy buildings, not through just professionals, but through the people who are also building, and most of them might not have the patience of searching through a document, a PDF document that is more than 300 pages. Ruth?
And Ruth, Arabu has taken 4 minutes of your 5 minutes. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I shall be brief. I believe he's put across majority of the points. I'm a landscape architect, so I'll speak to the landscape design element. And one of the issues I wanted to raise is the landscape architect is not defined as part of the professionals. So that's something that should be looked into, especially with the spirit of recognizing emerging professionals. And this is also being captured in the revised CAP 5 to 5.4, so that should be looked into. Number 2 is that the landscape design has been assigned to the architect. It should be the landscape architect, not the architect, because that's a person with the technical know-how. Then the third thing is the area of softscape. It's not defined, it's very general, and in this case, the developer can decide to pave most of it and plant 1 tree and tell you that's a softscape. So there's need to define this space in terms of the percentage of the open space, how much is paved and how much has a softscape. And in line with this, in areas where 100% ground coverage is allowed, then look at green walls, roof gardens. How do you enforce this so that every building has a green space, regardless of the ground coverage? And the final part is on the drainage, in terms of stormwater, and there's also this it's in line with the civil designs, there should be a standard on how to encourage percolation by using the various methods. So this should also be included in the standard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. Thank you,
1
AAK.
minute.
Seriously.
Apologies. So I'll speak on behalf of the professionals. I'm the QS chapter chair. In one of the presentations in the morning, someone mentioned there is a clause about remedies against professionals in terms of defects liability. So I pray that the NCA is working with the professional institutions and government regulators that regulate these professionals that you seek to have remedies against. Thank you.
Asante sana. On the professional bodies that we had invited, and hopefully they are all here, we had AAK, IEK, AQSK, RASECA, that's the Roads and Civil Engineering Contractors Association, CAPSEC, KAM, that's Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Law Society of Kenya, Kenya Institute of Clerks of Works, KPDA, the chair was around, Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya, EBK, Borax, GSK, that is Geological Society of Kenya, KFMB, and FKE. Of those institutions, is there anyone with a comment? Those that have not spoken, that is not AAK and not IEK. Oh yeah, there is a gentleman there, please.
Okay, I'm assuming oral submissions are taken. I'm
Yes, they're
Hilary
being taken.
Koech from Geological Society of Kenya. Okay, I am submitting the issue of professionalism here because it has been lumped up to be the responsibility of the civil engineer to carry out the geotechnical works. We as geologists, a geotechnical engineer might not cover up to the required depth or the extent to which that structure is being affected, because the issue of lava tubes, the issue for fault lines, and all other aspects that are geological in nature. So my submission on behalf of the society is that you specify that in a geotechnical report, there should be a signature of the geologist working together with the rest of the professionals, like the engineers and the rest. So that is my submission. The other issue might have been might be dealt with KEBS, because in the area of Nakuru, there is the use of sand that are very substandard, because they don't have enough quartz elements that do not corrode, or they don't weather. But that one, I assume that we're going to submit the submission to the KEBS, or the standards body. So those are my submissions.
Thank
Maybe,
you.
one issue that I will raise as a parent is that the issue of children and people with disabilities, or area for playground, is very crucial in urban areas, because currently we know that there's some accidents, whether children fall or they're hit by vehicles. That is an issue that I can raise as a parent. So thank you.
Asante sana. Professional bodies. Oh, sorry, at the back. Where's the mic on this side, please?
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the opportunity. I'm Nick Nzioki. I represent the Building Surveyors Registration Board, and I was sent by our Chairman Abutola to come and raise the issue of our section, part 17. Part 17, Kiteme, that is your part. There are some schedules which we did not see. Would you please try to include at least schedules for inspection, particularly the condition survey schedule and the structural survey schedule? It is very important you guide people how to undertake a condition survey. Also, the structural survey, that is something we would like to include it. And we are happy with the effort of the entire team, and we congratulate the chairman of the NCA and the committee which have been working on the National Building Code. This is something which is timely, and we are happy that you have been working. We propose that at least we try to push it fast enough so that at least we get the bill through to the parliament. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. We have from EBK on that side, and I hope from professional bodies, EBK is the last. There's another one? Okay. So the ones that have had their hands risen, have seen you, you will give your comment.
Thank you, moderator, the chairman of the board, and all the peers, chairman of the board, and all protocol observed. My name is Engineer Kere Makoha. I'm representing the Engineers Board of Kenya, and I wish to put our humble submission. We've written a submission that will be presented to the authority. And we'll start by the legal provisions. When I mean that is we look at our acts, the NCA Act and the EBK Act. The NCA Act states that the authority is mandated to register contractors, and of course to coordinate and oversee the construction sector. The EBK Act, Engineers Act of 2011, has mandated the board to register engineers and to regulate professional engineering services, to regulate the engineering profession. The Engineers Act has also mandated the board to develop standards for engineers and engineering practice. And this is very, very important. The board is mandated to develop standards, design standards. And I repeat again, the board is mandated to develop standards for engineers. Now, is the building code an engineering standard? Of course, we do appreciate that the building code deals with many aspects of the construction industry, and all players are included. But allow me to be biased towards engineering, because a number of engineers have been mentioned. The structural engineer to do certain designs, the mechanical engineer to do certain designs. We can argue and look at it that the building code, in a way, is an engineering standard. In a way. I see a conflict where we have two bodies that are designing standards for engineers. The board and now the authority. So when you want to enforce the code, the engineer is going to be answerable to who? To the authority or to the board? That is one. Secondly, if we go to even the preliminaries, part one of the preliminaries, when you talk about civil engineer, and you look at the Engineers Act, there's no way that it mentioned about civil engineer or mechanical engineer. It talks about a professional engineer, a consulting engineer, and a graduate engineer. There's also a definition of civil engineering. Now the authority, through the code, is describing who an engineer is, and the authority does not have the authority to actually register this engineer. So there's going to be an overlap. Thirdly, if you look at the preliminary still, on building services, it talks about, it means a system comprising equipment, pipes, cables, ducts, and support of a system of a building. And this is read together with section 6 of the code that talks about supervision of construction works. It says that provides that preparation of design, supervision of works in a building, or the performance of a building function shall only be undertaken by a registered professional, licensed professional. Now, This registered licensed professional, we're talking about an engineer, we're talking about an architect, we're talking about a land surveyor, we're talking about an environmentalist. Does the code also describe the extent of work? What is the extent of work that an engineer needs to do in this particular building services or the supervision of construction works? What is the extent that an architect needs to do in terms of supervision of construction works? Do you define professional architectural works? Have you defined professional land surveying works or services? Because the Act is clear, it has defined professional engineering works. And as I conclude, the code is a wonderful document, and it has been prepared very well. But if you look at the context in which the code was developed at that time, and in this era, there is so much that we need to consider. In 1968, the Engineers Board was not there. The authority was not there. Counties were not there. And so when we look at that context, we already have legal frameworks that govern these particular professions. And therefore, it's going to be a quagmire in terms of even the enforcement. If you look at the previous code, the one which was repealed, there's a section that says the owner is going to make an application to the council so that inspections can be done. The previous speaker talked about inspections of a building after 5 years. What is the inspection done during construction? Who is supposed to do what? And so, as I make my submission, we advised the university Parliament, when they were talking about the University Act. And this is where we are on issues of accreditation. And if we are not careful, then we are going to have also a parallel body that we are regulating the same profession. I'm not saying that it is direct, but it could be indirect. Another thing about the code, before I finish, it has been very, very clear about structural design, but extremely silent on electrical design. You haven't talked about electrical, you've talked about installation. But before an installation is done, there has to be a design. Who is this person designing this electrical installation? Who is this person designing mechanical installations? Who is this person designing the water? Water, wastewater, you talked about wastewater drainage. Is this person defined? So it is our humble submission that before we reach a level where there is conflict in terms of mandates, yes, through the business law, the authority is mandated to develop and enforce the building code, and which is actually a design standard. Now, the building code talks about engineers, do this, do that, but it doesn't give the authority the power to actually, register these engineers. So there's a potential conflict of which we need to address. Maybe not in this forum, maybe Parliament needs to clarify, maybe the courts need to clarify, maybe the cabinet needs to clarify, but that is a potential risk that we may need to consider. It's a humble submission. Thank you.
Thank you. Your submissions are well received. We go to the 4 hands that were raised there. There's a mic next to you. Gentlemen, please. Proceed.
Afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed. My name is Fiona Songa, Chief Executive Officer of the Technology Service Providers Association of Kenya, that is part of KEPSA. Our submissions, which we submitted at the beginning of the drafting of the code, we've noticed were not featured in the code at all. And what we are asking for here is not something new. It's been handled in the acts before when we had Kenya Post and Telecommunications. When you built a house, you had to make sure that you had a facility to enable KPTC, get you connected for communication. And that is basically what we are asking for. And we proposed a whole new section on telecommunications installation that hasn't been accepted and hasn't been featured in. Unfortunately, with where we are at, with ICT being considered as critical for economic growth and as a critical service within this country, the law within the Kenya Information and Communication Act puts penalties of up to 20 million for damage of the infrastructure. We are trying to find a way by using this code to enable us work in collaboration with the contractors, with building contractors, with road contractors, with everyone who's involved in construction, so that they accommodate us at the design level. Build for us the ducts alongside every other infrastructure, building, house, road, water, sewer, whatever it is that you're building. Put for us the ducts. ICT professionals are not experts in all the other infrastructure. We don't know how to redo the roads. We don't know how to put the building back together when we have made the holes. That is not our expertise. Ours is to make sure that there is a space where we put whatever technology we need to put to facilitate communication. And since we are all going on to digital, I'm happy to hear everyone talking about online, but where is that online going to be if we don't have the facility in which we can get you connected? So again, with a lot of humility, I'm actually asking that I resubmit on behalf of the telecommunication service providers who are members of TESPOC, and please consider our input. We are not being technology specific. We are very neutral. When we ask for a duct, when we ask for a manhole, when we ask for a space where we can have maybe towers for antennas, we are not, those areas need to be allocated, because when they are not and we come and put in, if you damage today, the fine is 20 million, according to the Act. We just haven't opened up our mouths to bite. But we are going to start biting. And if that is the way we want us to go, then so be it. And maybe just to explain why we are giving this and the standards within Kenya Bureau of Standards that are already in existence, I'd like to give an opportunity to my colleague, Adam Len, to just explain the Kenya Bureau of Standards that we are referencing, which is KS 1882.
Okay, 1 minute, please.
Yes, 1 minute. Yes, thank you, Fiona. I just want to add a few very quick points. First, almost all countries have updated their building regulations in Europe, Middle East, and Asia to incorporate the minimum requirements, as Fiona has stated. It's not new, and it is in building regulations, not only in the standards, but of course standards provide the long details related to that. The EU directive in 2014 mandated every European Union country to do that. I also want to emphasize the national ICT policy of Kenya in 2019 actually says that the government will liaise with all relevant government departments to require all new commercial and private developments to be designed and adequately provided with facilities for high-speed connectivity. So it's in the government policy, it needs to be implemented here. We've only recommended 7 paragraphs that need to be incorporated. It is the minimum. It does reference KS 1882 that Fiona mentioned, that is being updated as we speak by KEBS, but was originally promulgated in 2009. So even that version is already there. And it's very important, the last point is around the digital divide. The reason this is so important is for an open access marketplace. We're not asking for cables in the buildings, we're just asking for the ducts and the spaces for any internet company to be able to put their equipment and their cables. And it will be there in the high-end apartments and the high-end houses, no doubt. The problem is the lower end, the lower income people will not get this in their buildings, and they will not get internet in their houses, or have to pay a lot more money for it, and they'll be relying on data bundles. So the digital divide will just grow faster and faster when online learning, online health, etc. is so important. So I just want to emphasize that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The points have been noted. The 3 remaining hands. He had not raised his hand, but now that he has the mic.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, High Table and fellow participants. My name is Dan Murugu, and I should say that I'm very proud to come from Nakuru City. First, also, I'd also want to applaud all the building professionals in the house. I came here because of personal interest. And number 2, I'm here because I'm here to actualize serious public participation. Probably you never gave me an invitation to come here, but I came here for serious business. We are taken through the presentation that the building code regulations aspires to promote professionals in the building industry. Now my take is this. As you as you move ahead to undertake this, I'm proposing that this actually should actually make reference to the provision, Kenya Constitution of Kenya 2010, Chapter 6, on integrity. How the professionals want to deal with the prospective investors. I humbly, it has to be in total confidence and trust. That's number one. Issue number two, and suppose I can donate my 2 minutes to any person who maybe have come from outside Nairobi, because I find I may be alone.
Then there will be time for the others, eh?
Okay,
Just
fine.
give yours, please.
Okay, sir. We are taking through. Okay, on the issue of approvals, I'm proposing there should be a framework to stipulate at what time maybe an actual approval can be granted to a developer. Similarly, it was captured at the counties. Previously, it actually used to be the director planning who used to approve. About 3 years, that was changed, that now the county minister within the department now approves the plans. Then I find that in a situation where this county minister has no background in whatever surveying, civil engineering, QS, then I think there's a conflict of interest. Going through the presentation, in terms of on the aspect of preparing the site, I'm proposing that where we are having a capital-intensive building project coming up, I'm proposing that there should be geological study for the same. And I'm happy there's a geologist here, and you talked about Nakuru. Maybe you should have asked for my permission to say that. So on capital-intensive building projects, I'm proposing that the same should also encompass geological study. I go to soil. When you talk about soil sampling, I'm not convinced. I'm proposing that there should be soil testing, humbly. On water, I want to submit that all building coming up must also provide room for water harvesting. In terms of inspection and maintenance, I'm proposing that every year a building should be repainted. And when I drove to Nairobi City today, I saw Kencom, a new coat of paint is coming up. I was very happy. So on the aspect of maintenance and inspection, each building must be repainted after every year. Whatever color, if you decide blue for Nairobi, and other areas want to pick yellow, it doesn't bother for me. I want to see a new coat of paint every year. On the aspect of persons with disability, this is very touching. You want to build lamps, you do what? You want to provide access for wheelchairs. I'm proposing that for a new building coming up, when you want to do the lamps, there should be consultation with the registered associations of persons with a disability. It's not just saying that you want to put lamps. How? The association are there to promote the interests of their members. They should be consulted. There should actually be room for consultation. Where you want to demolish buildings, I'm also proposing that there should be consultation with the immediate community to be affected by maybe that kind of a demolition. On the issue about access road, I'm proposing that there should be zero encroachment on service lane. What Madam is proposing here on, telecommunication. Issues about sewer. Those are service lane. So any building developer must refrain from encroaching on access road or service lane, because we want to do serious, honest business. As I conclude, I would want to say that I'm very proud of the building code of 1968 up to this time. I heard it was just being condemned. I proposed the State Department of Public Works and NCA and EU professionals, because I'm not one, should actually audit the gains or the achievement we have actually attained with this kind of regulation, this building code of 1968 up to this time. I think it has actually done wonders. On roofing, this is very touching. We've had a problem of asbestos in Nakuru, especially for the municipal houses. Now we are now forced to put a lot of money to do re-roofing. So asbestos should actually be totally be dismissed. Any maybe private or public or whoever that is putting up a new building should refrain from using asbestos. I came for public participation. Last year, all the presentation, nearly 30%, you talked about public participation. The experience the last 1 week, your NCA, I hope the director is there and these other people. I hope the PS left. This is normally what the government officers do. Make open remark, leaves here. So, your NCA's numbers were unreachable the last 1 week, including these days of holidays. So, when you talk about public participation, this has to be very structured. I need to confirm this meeting is on today before I actually leave where I'm coming from. And to call your number the whole of last week, nobody was able to pick. And the numbers are calling. It's very bad anyway, but thank you.
Asante sana, Dan. Please, those three hands. Yes, we can start from the back. Yeah, you will receive, and we need to reduce now the time. 3 minutes, not 5, please.
All right, thank you very much. My name is James Munene. I'm conversant with most of you, and I share sentiment with Fiona and others who have said they have raised issues and they have not been addressed. I was involved with a team a couple of months ago, and the PS was there, and I raised a few issues. I come from the Geological Society of Kenya, and I raised a few issues, and none has been addressed. And from the presentation that has been made, it's like we are setting ourselves for failure with the hazard maps and what they have done with the wind. Simply because when you are considering constructions, I'll start with wind, for example. If you have a sensor in JKIA and your building is in Udhiru, how does that help you where you are? Our code should be helping us, the professionals in the construction sector, to be able to design where the building, where it is located. So for example, if the code says we have a sensor at JKIA, we have another one at Kikuyu, and another one in Thika, then the engineer is able to choose which one am I going to use, okay? And that, I also saw she made a presentation with the rose diagrams. And she's showing us the direction of wind and all those things. Indoor air quality is also a key issue that we should set our nation ready to enjoy the benefit of clean indoor air. And if the sensors, for example, pick poisonous material from industrial area, then this information needs to be communicated to the user. And the user is the engineer, the architect, whoever is developing those things. Above that, back to geological issues, for the first time in 7 years, I am very happy geotechnical has become a key component in our construction sector. Your CEO and Muiru yourself, you are aware, for the last 5 years, I've been singing this song to the multi-agency team. I can see engineer there, their members. I've been singing about geotechnical investigation, and I am happy that it is in our building code. Beyond that, we also now need to take steps to actualize it. For example, everyone knows sand from Maimayu is used in most of our constructions in Nairobi. Our code should be very specific to say, if we are using sand from Maimayu, then have a mixed design that works with that sand. we cannot assume that the users, the fundis and the Mjengo people will make that decision on their own. The code should be able to help our people. And beyond that, we should also create room for the non-engineered structures that exist within our society. Not everyone is doing a 3-floor, 5-floor building. Many people are living in houses, maybe it's not even one level, it's a mabati house. Our building codes should address issues for those people because they are Kenyans and they form majority of us, unfortunately. So with those few remarks, I want to challenge the maps that have been presented, especially the seismic maps. As they have been presented, they cannot be used to add any value in our construction sector today. I say that with confidence because if you give a seismic map that paints Nairobi yellow, for example, and you know that if you put up a building in Upper Hill, you only need to excavate 1.5 meters and you are in solid, good rock. If you go a few meters to the University of Nairobi, you have to drill up to 20 meters or beyond just to find rock. The geologists in the field know our history, especially in Nairobi, the geological history doesn't allow us to have one thing that fits everyone. It's very specific. Upper Hill is different from CBD, it's different from Westerns. And when it comes to seismic hazard, when an earthquake comes, and I'll give an example with a recent one that originated somewhere in the coast, but people in Ruaka felt it more than everybody else. I don't know if you noticed that. There's something we call seismic wave amplification, and it goes with the soil types. So if the wave is coming from Rift Valley, is coming from Mombasa, wherever, as it traverses the ground, when it comes to places like, for example, Athi River, Ruaka, where there's a huge layer of clay, that layer will amplify the wave, meaning the buildings on top of that soil will experience, like if it's a 6 magnitude, they will experience more damage than adjacent buildings in areas where the basement is a good rock. So those are very specific, and they can only be done if an institution, for example, like NCA, is able to have like a map that can be used specific for an area, you know? That's the only way we can enhance the safety of our buildings. In a blanket assumption that this works will not save us. Again, they mentioned peak ground acceleration. And as I have said before, we need to empower the user of the data to be able to actualize it into a safe building. If the peak, for example, if you do geotechnical investigation in developed countries, in China, in Australia, they have a chart that they have given to the engineers. So if you do your investigation, for example, you've done your test on site, there's one we do, and you have your N values, then you can use the N values to determine the peak ground acceleration at that point where you are doing your building, okay? And that way then you will be able to optimize your design. Now, if we are telling them Nairobi is 1, use any, it's hazard level 2 or whatever, we are not helping the situation. I think the idea should be, let us appreciate where we are and look for solutions that will work for us to make it better for us. And as I conclude also, since I have had my good friend over there from EBK saying there could be conflict between one institution and another, let us also try to remember we have the National Building Inspectorate. Let's also try to evaluate how does NBI enhance the implementation of this building code? Because NCA is also supervising contractors, so maybe NBI can be able to go to any site and do the audit. My thoughts though, but let's try to bring everybody on board so that we make Kenya better for everyone.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James. Thank you. There was a hand in front of you. Oh, she has a mic, eh? Or please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Alice Mutai, Kenya Engineering Technology Registration Board. And from the list that you gave us, I did not see you or hear you mention that there was an invite for Kenya Engineering Technology Registration Board to be in this meeting.
It was there. I didn't read all of them.
Thank you. There is also an institution called Institution of Engineering Technologists and Technicians, the Society for Engineering Technologists and Technicians. That too was not invited. However, I have listened to the comments from the members, and it boils down to something that I believe is so pertinent. Many of the members who have spoken before me have raised concerns that we forward memorandums, we forward our comments, yet they are never considered. We too did, as Kenya Engineering Technology Registration Board. By the way, for information, this board regulates engineering technologists, engineering technicians. And as per the act which established the board, the act, I said for information also, is called Engineering Technology Act. It was assented to in 2016. So there is, in the built environment, very many players, very many professionals. We have the engineers, we have engineering technologists, we have engineering technicians. However, the building code has just mentioned only one cadre. Maybe, yeah, call them one cadre, because we'll have the architects, we have had the other ones. But the engineers will not, per se, undertake all the works. Engineering technology is part and parcel of what engineering technology is part and parcel of what is widely referred to as engineering. Engineering technologist is the practical application arm of engineering. What do? They actually actualize what we see on the ground. So in the built environment, we have the technologists, we have the technicians, we have the craft persons, and we have the artisans. However, the code has not mentioned any of those four cadres. Yet, the spirit of this code, when it was being developed, was inclusivity. It was also being guided by the Constitution of 2010, which talks of nothing but inclusivity. So the question is, what do we understand by inclusivity if at the end of it, we are leaving others aside? We will never have any construction completed without the technologist, without the technician. But nothing has been said about them. I don't know, because the Act, Engineering Technology Act, has defined what engineering technology is. It has defined the services. It has defined the works. It has also given responsibility to the board to oversee that anything that is engineering technology is actually undertaken by licensed technicians, licensed technologists. I am also concerned, here we are, and we were invited, and to do validation. What are we validating? If our concerns were never incorporated into the code. Honestly, there is something that we are not doing right. And someone had actually hinted, are we driving ourselves for failures? Or do we want to be fighting at the end of the exercise after all the years that you have told us it was spent? We are aware, and we were part and parcel of walking the journey. And that is how those concerns were actually raised and submitted. It is a really, really disheartening exercise that we are engaging ourselves in. The universities were invited. Some of these universities have programs in engineering technology. They are actually bringing out engineering technologists, engineering technicians. Where will they go if at the end of the day we have a code that we think will drive us in the next 50 or more years, yet we don't have any mention of them? It is a real concern. We have submitted. You have given us an email address to submit our concerns. I don't know, is it ever taken into consideration? We have the hard copies, we have handed in. We have the soft copies, they have been handed in or submitted, but there is no incorporation. I submit, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next to you, the row in front.
Thank you. I think it's still afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mildred Ambani. I'm the Honorary Secretary, Kenya Institute of Planners, and I said I also teach at Kenyatta University. So first and foremost, I want to laud the committee that has prepared this document. That is work well done, of course, headed by the able chairperson, Professor Rukwaru, and I've also seen some of my role models, Dr. Kariuki and Dr. Nsioki. Thank you for that document. However, I will say that Kenya Institute of Planners is missing out. And it's missing out fast, just as my immediate speaker has pointed out, no invitation. So no invitation to the first stakeholders meeting, no invitation to the second stakeholders meeting. But here we are, through other grapevine, we are able to reach here and we are represented. So we are ready to collaborate with NCA, we are ready to collaborate with the committee that is working on this document going forward, but we just say that we need to be invited or be brought on board. Given that even as the presenters, even as the chairperson was giving his submission, you're mentioning PLUPA, you're mentioning how this has to comply with the matters planning, and it's well documented in your document. Thanks to that, and thanks for all that consideration. But however, we feel that as KIP, we should have been on board in one way or another. Secondly, I'll speak to critics. And I've been in task forces, I've been in committees before, and I want to say where public participation is concerned, I am very happy when I see people giving comments the way they're giving. So NCA and the committee should be happy. Sometimes you even put a document online and nobody peruses through it. So this means that all these guys who are here have actually gone through your document, and that's why they're giving their critics. So I think you should thank all of us here, and you should even clap for ourselves at some point. And just to give again another indication to the committee that mostly when you come for the second stakeholders meeting, you need to have a matrix. Again, with all humility, I've said Professor Rukwaru is my senior. I'm not even supposed to critique his work, but I'm just saying that sometimes it's important for us to have a matrix, and this matrix gives all the comments that all the stakeholders have given us. Then you give your how you have reacted to the same as a committee, and what are the remarks, and even where is it in that document that you have given us online. So I think that is glaringly missing, and if that was done, I don't think we would be complaining the way we are complaining today. Then going to matters planning, we are just requesting that the building code gives a reference to PLUPA, as it has already done, but most importantly, we have the building and development control regulations that were just rolled out recently. If that could be referred to, it would be very helpful. Secondly, we are saying that we want the building code to be also flexible and to allow for the tested local materials and emerging technologies. You have mentioned the same, but I'm just still impressing to that. Then lastly, we are saying as KIP that the building code should also allow for county-specific policies, bylaws, and regulations. And why am I saying this is because every county or all the regions have different unique characters, and therefore they should be looked into. That's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mildred. We come to, I think, from Lesos Technical Institute, if I remember.
Thank you. I also want to talk to air views on a rare group, that is TVET. I can remember one of the speakers was talking about the technologies and technicians. First of all, I'm thankful for this forum, and it is very important. Remember, we people in the TVET, we are the people who contribute to the middle class labor force. Those who have done artisan, craft, diploma, and higher diploma. We are their trainers. Now, it's a good forum for us because we consume what you produce. And in front of me here, I'm seeing people from ANC, student ask us, engineering board, IET, the Institute of Surveyors, Institutes of Quantity Surveyors and Land Surveyors. So it's an opportunity for us because, in fact, it is for the first time. Some of us, somebody like me, is the first time to attend such a forum. And when we go back there, we are the people who disseminate whatever comes out of such meetings. And you rely on the labor force. You find one technician, we have one engineer with 10 or 20 technicians. These are the people who do the real work. So we are urging the organizers of this meeting and the bodies I've heard who are here to make sure that you put us in the map. You invited almost 20 colleges. I've only heard about Meru Poly, or Lesos Technical, SIA Institute, and Rift Valley Training Institute in Eldoret. So they are the people who have been represented here. So maybe if you organize any forum, please don't forget the middle class labor force. They're the people who roll the economy. Thank you so much.
Asante sana. Let's see who has a comment, I think a question. Right now we are not going to any group, just anyone with a question. I've seen your hand, we are coming to you. The guys with the mic, there's a lady behind, please. You may raise your hand again, I think, for them to see. Madam. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you already have it. Please, proceed.
Hello, hi. Afternoon all protocols observed. My name is Maureen from ITDP, Institute of Transport Development and Policy. So ITDP had raised recommendations on considerations of having regulations focusing more on parking maximums instead of parking minimums. This is because parking maximums will regulate oversupply of parking spaces and enhance maximum utilization of prime urban land, especially along the transport corridors. So we would like to urge for this to be implemented within the building code to enhance transit-oriented development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Any other question? Yes, I've seen on that side. And I think we are coming towards the end in the next more or less 5 minutes, the plenary. Then we'll invite the chair just to make some comments on the points mentioned. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Kimani, working with the State Department for Housing and Urban Development. I think we should congratulate NCA and the team that has been working on this. I know that they have spent quite some time. But for the session today, it is, I think, to help us also improve on what is there and based on what they have presented. I have a comment. First of all, I think it is clear we need to really rethink about our definition of professionals as it has come out. It's something that I noted because there are quite a number of professionals in the built environment which needs to be considered under this code. And just to reiterate what Madam said concerning the other people who will be implementing this code. We have to be very clear so that we can have a seamless implementation of the code. The other issue that I would like maybe for us to consider, we need to provide a section, I think at the end, in terms of how can you amend this code? Or will we wait again for 50 years to amend it? I think having a provision at the end that allows you to amend after a certain period will help us to be able to bring on anything that is emerging to be considered in the code. So then there is need to consider that section or a clause on how you amend the regulation. And then I note there is a period of 1 year when the code, once it is passed, it shall come to force. I think it is also important to provide for what happens during that period, maybe, in terms of whatever was being processed, for example, in terms of approvals, what shall they be relying on? Because there is a clause at the end that says that this code is repealed, or the code of 1968 is repealed. So in between that period, we need to think about what will happen, because the new code will not be in force still. We still need a period of 1 year. I think the other comments have been, I had a concern on the matrix actually, and it has been raised, so I'll not repeat that, because we need to really assure these members that their comments really matter, and whatever they provide, at least we have to show that we have been able to take care of them. Thank you.
Asante sana Bwana Kimani. I don't want to close anyone. From this side, Secretariat. Oh, sorry. So we have him and him.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, mine is Edgar Onyisi from Kilifi County Government. I'm a building inspector, and I'm really happy to be here, at least to express what I have in my mind as a building inspector. Now, there was something that was said about the inspections. Down back there, we do counter-checking on the buildings that are ongoing. Now, if you don't quote us in, who is responsible for the inspection of ongoing construction works? Because a building can collapse during the construction, and it can collapse upon the completion. Who is held responsible? Because as we speak right now, I have a colleague who has got a court case for the last 4 years because he's an inspector in charge of a specific place. Now, can you help us into that? We need to know who should be responsible for the inspections and who should be responsible when a building collapses in the county level, so that we don't be arrested, all of us, with the contractor. We have families that depend on us. Thank you. Just that.
Asante. Seems you wanted the contractor to be arrested alone. Eh? Thank you. Yeah, I think you have the mic.
Okay, good afternoon. My concern is on the way the codes have referred to.
You introduce yourself, please. Eh?
Okay, my name is Pius Gidu. I'm from Numerical Machining Complex. I will speak on behalf of various professionals referred to in the code, and it's the way the code has sort of massacred the definition of various disciplines. I would cite especially the engineering discipline, just attempting to define who a certain type of engineer is, without referring to relevant laws that are with us. I believe they are bodies that could maybe properly define various disciplines without having to put it in this document. I believe instead of trying in the document to define, for example, I've seen in the section 63 trying to define the mandate of civil, that is almost conflicting with their duties. It's good to refer to EBK law. There are various KTRB and certain other bodies. I believe this one also synchronized with the planning. We have surveyors, and this should be taken into consideration.
Thank you very much. Behind me. Okay, I think we are good. So this juncture, let me allow the chair of the committee. Oh, sorry, I had not seen you. And let that be the last one, please. After him, then the chair of the committee, Professor Rukwaro, you'll come. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. All protocols observed. My name is Ian Bett. I'm representing the Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority. I've been able to go through specific sections that are of interest to the authority in regards to specifically installation of petroleum tanks and LPG tanks. I think there's need to work on the definition of liquid petroleum, because when you say liquid petroleum tanks and you're referencing liquefied petroleum gas, there could be an issue in terms of definition. And I think with the regulations, we need to avoid ambiguity. Also, I think there's an intent to actually capture issues to do with LPG supply, especially now that the demand for LPG is growing. We've seen developments coming up, and they want to do reticulation of LPG, where we have maybe story buildings install piped LPG to their residents. So the code does not specifically capture this aspect of reticulation. So I felt, especially looking at sections 431 to 433, which cover those particular sets, those particular aspects in regards to installation of petroleum tanks and liquefied petroleum gas tanks. I feel also there's a conflict, especially when we go prescribing standards. These standards are subject to change. For instance, you will see on 431, it references a standard that has been adopted as an East African standard, and the standard has actually changed. So I feel like we may not need to go prescribing the particular standards that are applicable, especially in the space where NCA does not have control in development of those standards. For instance, now we are working on standards on reticulation of LPG, which I see have not been captured in these codes. So I feel like we should not really go prescribing standards, especially where you don't have control, so that we don't leave any other standards that are out or are being developed. I believe that under the Statutory Instruments Act, it allows for these codes to be amended after every 10 years. It's a requirement of the Statutory Instruments Act. So if we leave it open so that it's there's no restricting whatever standard comes up within these 10 years, then I feel like those issues may be covered. Also on specifics on installation of solar PV systems, I have not seen any mention on solar PV regulations, which are very key in regards to installation of these systems. Also on solar water heating systems, I believe there was a contention a while back in regards to solar water heating systems in buildings, but these particular regulations are being revived. So I feel like we need to be able to leave it open so that these upcoming legislations are not locked out in regards to their installation or their application in building codes. Thank you.
Sante sana Bet. Let's appreciate ourselves, please, as we welcome Prof. Rukwaro.
I start stating that I'm very happy that you have read the code and you want it strengthened, and that your contribution are very specific and address specific clauses that actually can be point out, and that if what you are saying has not been included in any of the clauses that you are referencing, certain weaknesses or need for improvement, you can actually take us there and tell us 3-1, like one my colleague said, we can do A, B, C, D so that it serves us better. I think that one, we have to applaud ourselves that we have read the document and we want it to serve us better, and that you have been able to identify areas that of improvement that actually we can easily address to actually as feedback from validation meeting. I think when it comes to the matrix of response to each of areas submitted memorandum, I can assure you there is a record which is part of what is being presented in the as some documentation to delegation committees, as we are told, delegated legislative committee of the parliament. There's a matrix for that. But you see, this matrix are for different sitting with different groupings. So if you were to present that, I think it would have taken a lot of time. But I think of importance was the issue that you raised, how was it addressed in that matrix? And I think our legal office, through Mr. Advocate Rokoba, can actually come and assure us that these are the issues that were addressed. And if they were not addressed, what were the reasons? And if needs arise that we can still revisit some of the issues, we can continue discussing, just to see that the building code that we are going to validate and registrate is inclusive of your feedback. So for that, I don't think we can belabor about it, because these are facts. These are facts you presented, they were considered. What were the reasons for whatever was responded in the building code? All that is addressed. And I think that's something that we can share with the specific groups as they have presented. I think overall, what I can say, the areas of contention probably are only 3. 1, inclusivity of specific groups who participate in the construction industry. I think that is the most contentious issue I've had, where people are coming very clearly that we are not included. That's something that I think the committee can actually consider and actually share with you what is the way forward on that issue, if it's not well articulated. And if, like for engineers, they have said it's been not very specific. For the technologists, they are saying there is nowhere they're included. For TVET trained people, they are saying we are not included, and so on. But these are issues that we can come up with a solution with our legal office. How do we address that issue so that it doesn't conflict with other legal positions? Still on that issue of inclusivity, I think in terms of definition of any profession, if he exists in any statutes or any acts of parliament, we will refer to that act. We will not define it in the building code. The issues of setting responsibility of certain works that are done by certain people, I think it's something that we have to really be very clear on. How do we continue doing blame games by leaving the building code open, that a professional will do it and we are not saying who will do it, or do we specify this profession? I think that's something that the legal office can address us. Note that this document has gone through many minds, the legal, the technical, and so on. So if there are issues that we need to address that relates to legal, needs to address relates to the technical. Actually, the technical is minimally a problem to any majority of the people here. The issue is when it comes to the professionals, the people who are involved. I think that's where many of the issues are coming in. And I think those are issues that we can easily address with the memorandum you have given us. The door is open for response of your comments. And the main thing is representative from your groups can easily be included in the committee, and we thrash out whatever it is that is holding us back to have this building code go forward. Otherwise, I cannot go through the comments each of you have said, and but I think overall we are very open as a committee, and I think even NCA, the secretariat for this committee, is very open for the solution of any issue that members have raised in this preliminary. And we will not go to the specific of addressing each of these, because addressing each of these, we will need that we go to the specific clause that we want to be strengthened. Yeah? And some of the issues you have raised, we had already put forward, and probably the way we did it, we summarized it too much in a way that you don't see the response coming out more clearly. So I think I don't want to go to the detail, since you have presented, we have taken the comments. We are still part, you are still part of the end result of what we need to address in your comments. I think that, thank you, and I think that's what I can say. I don't want to go to the specifics. Otherwise, we can only address that by going to the specific areas, clause 32, with the legal people and all that. How do we address this? Otherwise, here we cannot go through each of these issues, as you all know. But we can have meetings that can resolve that in a very short time. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for those comments. As we come towards the end, I would like to invite the Executive Director, NCA.
Let me take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you. One thing I appreciate as I stand here is that it is past 3 o'clock, and we are all still seated, very much eager, very interested. For me, that gives me a lot of energy, confidence that as a country, we are really geared towards getting something for the benefit of the construction industry and enhancing quality. Want to welcome back our PS. He's here for this very occasion, for the closing ceremony. And I also want to appreciate all the comments that we have received from all of you. And I want to say the following before I invite our chief guest to give his closing remarks. Number one is that this journey has been around for a while, and today we came here to witness the validation aspect of the draft code, and we are happy that you've given your observations, your comments, and your input. So as a proposal is that the matrix, of course, is there. Maybe it was not presented the way it was expected, as the chair of the committee has said, Professor Okwaro. So my proposal is this, that we are going to look into that matrix, and it's linked to every clause of the code based on the comments you raised. And we are going to write to you. In addition to the comments you have given today, we'll be writing specifically on the areas you have raised, and we'll be asking you to confirm or give comments, because I want to assure you that we've accommodated all the comments, only that we didn't make that presentation. So after we receive our communication, we'll be requesting that you respond within a given time period that we will indicate, so that upon those responses, we'll now be saying that we have you accommodated. But I want to assure you that the reason we call you is to accommodate your comments. We are here to guide the process, but you are there to give us the input. This is your document for the industry. I also need to say this. When history is written, and you are sitting in this room for the last 7 or so hours, let your name be part of that history. Either you are part of that Kenyan who facilitated, or that expert who facilitated the development of the reviewed code, or you are part of that Kenyan who said that the status quo should remain. But I think the first one should be written as part of your historical achievement. Let it be a legacy that as a Kenyan living in this age and era, you participated in development and promulgation of an instrument that's going to be a game changer for the construction industry. That's what I asked for. That's what I asked you to do. And if there's anywhere that you need to look at it differently on a positive angle, that should be the approach. As we sit here, I want to appreciate that the host, who is the board members here led by the chairman, are very keen. They are here to support this process to the end. And of course, our custodian for the ministry is here, the PS, and we can assure you, by us sitting here the whole day, it means that we are all geared towards supporting a good cause. With those few remarks, before I invite the chief guest to give his closing remarks, we were here for 2 objectives. Number 1 was to validate the building code, the draft building code, and number 2 was also to validate the regulatory impact statement that also has been shared with you, and to confirm that has been on the website for within the statutory requirement period, I think more than 2 weeks since gazettement was done by the minister. And also to confirm that I want to believe that all who have thus come from all walks of life, you may have, or you saw actually the public notice that was in the newspapers as well as the Gazette. And that is the spirit of our country, and I want to believe you support the same. So with those 2 objectives that brought us here, I have the following questions to put before you for purpose of consideration, not forgetting that you've given your comments. So number 1, subject to the comments received from you, the stakeholders, during this stakeholder validation workshop on 6th May 2022 on the building code, the question posed to the plenary is, does the plenary confirm the adoption of 1, the regulatory impact statement as presented, and number 2, the National Building Code 2022, subject to comments received? I want to get a proposer and a seconder from the floor. Mike, please. There's a hand there. A microphone. Where is the mic? You know, we have to, we want it to be recorded and captured. Just give the mic. There's a, yeah. Kindly just share your name, we'll record it. Record your name and your institution.
Hi, Jason Muchache from the Technical University of Kenya. I propose that the questions read by the Executive Director of the National Construction Authority following the discussions and deliberations we have held here be adopted.
Thank you very much. Seconder, there is a, from Nakuru City.
I rise to second by stating as follows. I, Daniel Murugu, today, 6th May 2022, at Bomas of Kenya Auditorium, having joined other Kenyans of goodwill, confirm and move to second the draft code, building code regulation 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A clap, please, for all of us. Thank you very much. Bwana PS and board members and all the stakeholders, mine is to sincerely thank you from where I sit. And as National Construction Authority, this is a big day for us. It is your day, and we are looking forward to a better, transformed industry that is safe, is having quality constructed works, and is good for all of us. Bwana PS, karibu for your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. You have been here for, I think, the last 7 hours or so. So I'm not going to read any remarks, which then will mean that you stay here longer. At least I'd gone back to the office, done some work, and maybe also taken lunch. So I'm sorry that I left you here, but thank you very much for your devotion to what we were doing today, because you decided that you were even going to do away with the lunch for the time being, so that you can finish this assignment. So thank you very much. I was actually going to propose that all the responses to all the questions which have been asked, and the indication of how each of those issues has been addressed in the two papers that be uploaded in the website of the National Construction Authority. But I think the executive director has promised even to do more. He has actually promised to write and respond specifically to those issues. But at the same time, because every question that is asked is normally asked on behalf of the others, maybe on behalf of a quarter or a third of the people seated in the room, it would be much better even if then we send the responses, that at the same time the responses are uploaded on the website, so that everybody can also access them. Otherwise, thank you very much. I think it was a fruitful day. I think they ask who will, when will it be done, and for us, this is the day that the code has been validated by those who are here today, here and by yourselves. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, PS, Chairman Hidi, all of ourselves for having been here since morning. At this juncture, I want us to stand. We are all invited for lunch. As soon as the national anthem is, we close with that, somebody will guide us from outside. So let's be ready, let's be upstanding for the national anthem. Thank you. I think we are all invited for lunch. Those of us following us online as well, karibuni. Asante.